Let's get going. Hi everybody. Welcome to July and National Disability Pride Month, National Fireworks Safety Month, ironically, National Park and Recreation Month, National Bison Month, and National Hot Dog Month. So get out there and celebrate in nature with your hot dog and your sparklers. We are so excited that you're here and we are all very much looking forward to our discussion today focused on artificial intelligence for employers, what it is, how it works, and why it matters. To prep for this session, I just asked ChatGPT, what do people need to know about AI in the workplace? And this is what it popped out for me. I'm going to read it. Where am I at? Oh, okay. AI is reshaping the workplace, and it's happening faster than most people realize, whether you're a business leader, employee, or job seeker. And here's what you need to know. Key benefits at work: boost productivity, and it gives examples, enhances decision making, improves customer service, streamlines operations, and fuels innovations. Challenges to watch for: bias and fairness, data privacy and security, job displacement, trust and transparency. What workers should do: learn to collaborate with AI, upskill continuously, and stay curious. What leaders should prioritize: responsible AI deployment, clear communication, and inclusive transformation. Just this week on Monday, Becky, Shayla, and I spent a day working with a variety of AI tools to improve our team's process management, our project management processes. We popped all of our process flows into the tool, and it provided several results that were helpful. One, it verified that we were right on track with a lot of our processes. Two, it helped us identify the best project management tools to use based on our criteria, which included cost, functionality, ability to automate, assign tasks to other users, and to send reminders. And then finally, it identified some gaps in our flow that spurred our human brains into a brainstorming a variety of solutions and resources that we will be developing to support you with your talent pipeline development. It was really a great example of how we can leverage the power and benefits of AI as a collaborative tool. It was pretty cool. So I just encourage you to take a moment and kind of play around with that tool when you have time. I'm very much looking forward to hearing from our guests on how they've incorporated AI into their work. Just some of our chatting this morning before you guys popped on had me really excited. My name is Jessica Miller, and I'm the Director of Workforce Strategy for the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development, and we are really happy that you're here with us today. If you're new here, thank you so much for joining us, and if you're returning, thank you for coming back. To kick things off, if you haven't done so already, please let us know who you are, your role, where you work, and if you are so inclined, your favorite Minnesota State park to visit. Our team of consultants work regionally, which means that each consultant will have a slightly different way that they do their work based on their region, the employers that they're serving in those regions. But the common core ways that we support our employers are identified right here on this slide. We work with you to identify gaps in your current strategies, ensure that you're connected with your local, regional, and state workforce partners, and we assist you in building out strategies that will help you attract and retain workforce. As you will learn today, our consultation process is rooted and informed by data and is developed specifically with your company's needs and goals in mind. We serve as your guide through the process and convene workforce partners for support, share training grant opportunities, and continually check in to ensure progress is being made and assist you in making adjustments along the way. When you work with us, you are automatically connected to a wide network of people and partners who work collaboratively for the success of our state, our regions, our communities, so that your business and our workforce can thrive. We don't do this work alone, and it takes many people to bring success to these efforts. And you'll meet two of them today, our labor market analysts. You'll see on this next slide that we have our 2025 lineup available for registration. You spoke, we listened. We incorporated your feedback into these topics, and we'll continue to weave your needs into our sessions for the rest of the year. We are currently in the process of planning our 2026 lineup, so please do let us know what you would like to learn more about. Speaking of that, I would also like to take a moment to encourage you to fill out the evaluation at the end of our time here together. We will get that link popped up in the chat for you. This is the perfect time and opportunity to share your thoughts on what you find valuable in these sessions and what you want more of, as well as sharing your thoughts on our next year's lineup. As always, these webinars are recorded and available to view at any time via YouTube, as well as our careerforcemn.com website, .gov website. We just changed that. So could someone pop that new website into the chat for us, please? Where you'll find recordings and resources from this session, as well as all of our previous sessions. We will be utilizing our chat feature today throughout our time together. So please ask questions, answer questions, interact with each other, our guests, our consultants, partners, and each other. We really do want to build upon the community that we have started here and welcome your engagement always. We have a packed agenda with speakers who dedicated their careers to being change makers and culture shakers, including some of our favorites from our LMI team. I'm so excited for you to meet them. So without further ado, it's my privilege to introduce you to the amazing Becky Zubek, our Southeast and South Central Workforce Strategy Consultant. Take it away, Becky.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Workforce Wednesday and our session Introduction to AI for Employer, what it is, how it works, and why it matters. AI is constantly in the headlines, but many employers still wonder what exactly is AI, how does it apply to my business, and what does it mean for my workforce? So today's session will answer those questions, and you'll leave with AI fundamentals, examples across industries, workforce opportunities and challenges. And you'll also hear from Minnesota employers already exploring AI. And if you're feeling curious but unsure, you're definitely in the right place. So because AI is a wide topic, we're doing things a little differently today. So before noon, you'll really get the foundational concepts and then the statewide labor market data. And then from noon to 12:30, in our Unplugged Q&A, we'll dive into hands-on employer examples and take your questions live. So you'll definitely want to stick around for that interactive segment. And before we dive in, let's take a quick pulse check. With here, you'll see the a QR code, and the same link is in the chat. This isn't just a test, it's just a quick pulse check. So how familiar are you with AI? How often, if ever, you would use it at work? Maybe where you think AI could help your organization most, and what you hope to get from today's session. So please take a minute to respond. And while we get ready to introduce our first speaker, your answers will help us tailor the discussion in the Q&A later on. While you're filling that out, watch the chat. We're dropping a few AI learning resources, LinkedIn Learning, Coursera, Udemy, all of which I've taken courses on, and you can explore them as soon as you wrap up today's webinar, because we'll know you'll be on them. So let's move on to the agenda here in a minute, and then feel free to finish the check-in at your own pace. So what we have lined up for today, what is AI, the foundational overview, AI in the workforce, trends and talent needs, real-world applications from Minnesota employer stories, Unplugged Q&A, and your chance to engage with our panel. So we've got a great lineup. So let's meet our first speaker. Please welcome Mike Kutsky from Ridgewater College. Mike is an experienced educator with a passion for AI, technology, and change. He'll give us a 20-minute foundational overview of AI to set the stage. So Mike, I will hand it over to you without further ado, because we have a lot of great information to get to.
Thank you so much. Again, my name is Mike Kutsky. I'm very excited to be here today. I want to thank Minnesota DEED for hosting this and inviting all of us as panelists. And I want to thank all of you for attending. I think if you look at the number of attendees, you'll see that AI is kind of a current hot topic, and that's pretty cool for us to be part of that. My background, I think, is important to understand. I am pretty old. And if you're thinking, how come they got an old guy to talk about AI when there's a whole bunch of young people available? I think that's a valid question. I'm actually from the 1900s. How many of you share that with me? I just thought I would start there. I have two goals today. My first goal is that you enjoy this presentation. I think for adult learning and retention of information, if you enjoy a process, you'll take more with you. Secondly, I believe that my goal here is to add value. And I hope at the end of the 20 minutes that I have that you can say, I learned something, I took something with you, that this was valuable. So those are my two goals. So my role this morning or today is to talk about AI literacy. And really, AI literacy is your ability to understand what AI is and how to utilize it, how to leverage it, how to learn with it, how to understand how it can add value to you personally and professionally, how it can add value to your organizations. In that context, we also have to make sure that we talk about some of the concerns that AI brings up. So in my slides, I'm going to talk a little bit about that whole range, all of the possibilities and all of the challenges, all in 19 minutes. So I hope you're ready to really dig into this. A couple of things to keep in mind. AI is not new. What is new is our access to AI. ChatGPT a couple of years ago opened up public access to all of us to AI. AI has been around for decades, but our access to it is really recent, really current, really new. The other piece is to understand the basics of AI is that it's a software, it's a tool that recognizes patterns based on data. And I think if you have that base understanding, it just goes out and it digs through data, it digs through information, it scrapes data and information, and then it looks for patterns. And it's really good at that. It's better at understanding, recognizing, leveraging patterns than humans are. And that's one of the concerns that we have. Next slide, please. This is the most important slide I have. If you remember nothing else from my presentation, this is the slide I hope you remember, and this is the information I hope you remember. A lot of times I'll have conversations with people who look at this as a dichotomy. It's either technology or it's people. And that's not our reality. Our reality is that it needs both. It's a combination of technology, it's a combination of artificial intelligence, and it's a combination of humanity, of the personal touch. So for example, I can do a prompt, I can get a result, but then I need to interpret that result and I need to apply that result and utilize that result in the way that only humans can. And I think sometimes in the conversations, people get caught up in, again, it's this or it's that, or it's good or it's bad. A quick, just something you may find interesting. They've done some very large studies. And the question they ask, and I'm paraphrasing, is AI provides more benefit than harm. And so think of that question. And they ask people in China, adults, a lot of them. And about 70% of people in China said AI offers more benefit than harm. And then when they did that same study, two different groups did this study in the United States. The results in the United States for people who said AI offers more benefit than harm, the two results were 39% and 38%. And the reason I bring that up is just to get you to understand that attitude and how we interact with AI plays a huge component in what the outcomes can be, will be, should be. So next slide, please. All right, just a quick overview. Look at some of the patterns and trends, the speed of adoption and evolution. I have had so much fun working with AI over the past 2 years. And here's what I've learned that I want to share with you. AI is changing right now weekly. The newest data out is that it is doubling in power every 3.3 months. So think of that. Every 3.3 months, AI is doubling in power. So some of the challenges I talked about 6 months ago have already been changed, adapted, corrected, improved. AI will continue to improve. Good or bad, AI will continue to improve. It's going to continue to gain power. It's going to continue to gain abilities. It's going to continue to gain what it can and can't do for us. AI is going to be embedded into most areas of your life, whether you choose to accept that or if you're excited. So a couple of questions. If I asked you, how are you using AI today? Just take a moment and think about that. How many of you used Siri this morning with your iPhone? How many of you used an Alexa? How many of you used navigation in your car? How many of you used Grammarly? All of those pieces are built on AI, and sometimes we're using AI frequently and not even identifying it as AI. AI is not a replacement, rather it's a supplement to work. And I think it's really important to understand that that's the core. Each of you individually and then collectively in your organizations have to make decisions. How are we going to leverage AI? How are we going to use it to increase productivity? How are we going to increase it to have some fun? So the very first time I used AI, here's just some personal information. I have been with my wife a very long time. If any of you are in relationships that have some history to them, you may or may not have made a mistake in that relationship. I, at times, will say things that I maybe shouldn't have said, and then I have to, make up with my wife. And I decided one day that a way to make up with her after all these years would be to send her a poem letting her know how much I care. So I went to ChatGPT and I said, please generate a romantic, whimsical poem for my wife who I said something to I shouldn't have said earlier today. So it created this beautiful poem and I sent it to her. I texted it to her. How many of you think that after, I think that we dated 15 years before we got married, and I think this is our 35th anniversary. So it's been a long time. And my point is, how many of you think she was expecting a romantical, whimsical poem from me? She was not. And we had a blast. And now that's something I do regularly. I also have a son-in-law, and he texts romantic, whimsical poems to my daughter because it's a very good strategy. Secondly, his brother is an electrician on a union crew down in the metro. And then he showed his brother how to do it. And now his brother and all of the electricians send their boss romantic, whimsical poems. So my point is, start with something small. Start with something catchy, sticky, something that you can have some fun with, and then grow it from there. But you've got to start somewhere. And then understand technology compounds. So how we're using AI today, we haven't even thought of possibilities for the future. Lastly, change is not really just the technology, but on our behavior and how we base our behavior from that technology. Next slide, please. So real quick, here's my overview slide. 4 types of AI I just want you to make sure everyone's aware of and comfortable with. And this is not a total list. This is just a micro version, 4 of the more common uses. Generative AI is the most common use of AI currently. It is what most people think of. It's when you create new content. You use it to write, to edit an email, to create an image, to create any kind of new information. And that is what is most frequently used for currently globally. Predictive AI is when you take AI and you use it to look for data, patterns, recognitions, make predictive analysis. So imagine the stock market. You were going to invest in a stock, you read a little bit about it, you make some decisions. What if you took all the stock market data globally for the past 200 years, put it into an AI agent, and then had it do a really deep analysis? How many of you think you may be able to make a little better decisions on where you invest money moving forward? All actual examples that are being used now. The conversational AI is my favorite. And I think this is going to be one of the biggest game changers for the average person. And what I mean by that is, for a while, we had to really work hard on our prompt engineering and how we provided the written prompts for AI. AI now has moved to what's called natural language model. It's a conversational AI, so you just have a conversation with it. I'm not going to do a live demo in this because of time, but I have I have ChatGPT, I've got Copilot, and I've got Claude on my iPhone. And I can open that app, and then I can just have a conversation. I can just have a conversation with them. And it's different than a prompt in that I can say, hey, I'm doing a presentation for a group specific to the basics of AI. Give me 5 new features in AI that have come out in the last 30 days. And then it'll give me those features and I'll say, tell me more about this. Go into more in depth on that. Help me understand this a little better. Also, if you have some things at work you're working on, you can say, let's talk about this issue I'm dealing with at work. Can you give me some insight based on research? Can you give me some insight based on other like organizations? So those conversations are really kind of, I don't want to say the future because they're here now, but they're going to become more and more prevalent and more popular as we move forward. The last one, again, is going to have a huge impact on each of you personally and professionally, and that's the agentic AI. Agentic is just short for their agents. So you create agents to do things for you. And what's fun, Steve and I were talking the other day just about what do we define as agents? And if you look at it very broadly, many things we're already doing are agents, or you can look at it specifically more the smaller definitions or narrower definitions talk about an agent does something in the background. It doesn't need human intervention. You can set it up and it will go and look for that information. It will process that and it will provide you what you're asking for. But what's changing is that each of us now have the ability to create our own agents, and that is powerful. So whether you use any of the more common AI tools, you can create your own agents. Next slide, please. All right. I got a little ahead of myself, but this is a natural language model. And again, just that conversation. You'll notice that all of my images in this slide deck, except the last one and the last slide, are just AI generated. And that's another use of that generative AI. So you can create images, you can create, now you can create videos, you can create podcasts, and it's really powerful what you can do. Next slide, please. So I want to be really clear so that you all understand there are so many tools out there right now that we could do a weekly series for the next year and not even get to half of them. I'm going to talk about just some of the major ones, but each tool has strengths and each tool has weaknesses. For anyone in the group who is over 40, you can notice that I went with an AI graphic here that looked at old school tools, and each of these tools has a different function. And it's a reminder that just like AI tools, they each have strengths and weaknesses. So I'm going to talk about a couple. We're going to start with Copilot, Microsoft Copilot. One of the foundations that Microsoft Copilot is built on is that they're going after the enterprise market. They built this looking at enterprise models. So state of Minnesota, educational facilities, nonprofits, and also private companies and businesses use their enterprise. What's nice about Copilot, it is built so that the information you provide, if you're using the enterprise model, stays internally. It doesn't get used to train their large language model. It also has lower rates of hallucinations or information that it makes up. It's really designed to be that business backbone. Well, then we'll move over to ChatGPT. ChatGPT is really, like I said, the one that opened this up to many of us to be able to use. But ChatGPT is from OpenAI. It's designed as an OpenAI model, and it is designed to continue to train its large language model. So information you put into it is continually used to continue to train it. It is free. They also have paid versions, but it's a pretty generic overview. It's a really good tool to use to learn with. It's very intuitive. We'll go to Claude. Claude is my new favorite. I'm using Claude right now. That's from Anthropic, and I'm using it. Its superpower is writing. The ability it has to write and really look at some of the deep research and really help you. So if you're looking at writing projects, let's say you have to write a grant, Claude is where I would go to look to have AI assistance with that. The fourth one I want to just mention is Google, Gemini. Gemini has some cool stuff right now. If you've not played around with a notebook in Google and Gemini, it's just really powerful. So each of them has strengths, each of them has weaknesses. The other piece I want to present to you is I get asked, what's the difference between the paid versions and the free versions? The free versions give you the bulk of anything that you want to work with in the paid versions, but you'll get much fewer repetitions. So for example, if I'm using the free version of ChatGPT and I'm asking it to make images for me, it'll say, okay, you've used up your tokens for the day. You can't make any more. You have to wait 24 hours to make another image. So I have a paid subscription to Claude, which is $20 a month, and ChatGPT, which is $19.99 a month. And you're thinking, okay, he's dumping $39.99 a month into these two. Best money I spend. I'm having a blast. I'm learning. I'm able to do a ton of things. Copilot I have through work, so I don't pay for a version there. But again, the biggest difference between the free versions and the paid versions is the amount of access you get and the amount of information you can get from them. Next slide, please. I have 5 minutes left and I have 3 slides. So I want to just take a moment or two. I'm not going to hit each of these, but some of the concerns around AI. The first one that I want to talk about is about environmental. Right now, they are building large data centers globally. These data centers take an incredible amount of energy, an incredible amount of water to cool. And there are a lot of concerns with the sustainability in regard to just the resources that are being utilized long-term for AI. Another one is there's concerns if people get so used to using AI, will they lose their ability to write and critically think? Education, are people going to just cheat their way through their degrees? Privacy issues. If I put information into Claude and I put information into Copilot and I put information into whatever it is, then a lot of that becomes public and other people can use it and access it. Will this slow down our skill development? These are all valid and important questions that we have to also talk about in addition to all the cool stuff and the opportunity. So I don't want to miss that. The other one that people talk about a lot are hallucinations. Hallucinations is when AI makes stuff up. And let me give you this example. If you use ChatGPT and it can't find an answer, it may make something up because it's designed to give you an answer. You're going to have higher rates of hallucinations in ChatGPT, but you'll have lower if you're using Copilot or Claude. They're designed differently. The other piece is the bias. So we have to just be honest about bias in AI. A large part of the AI model is they're scraping information across all of the information. If you look at who has had privilege and access to create information over the past 200 years, it's a pretty small demographic slice of our entire population globally. So when I do searches, especially deep research, I will say I'm looking for information from, and then I'll identify specific authors like African American female authors or specific demographic populations that I want to make sure are having equal input into the information that I'm getting back. Next slide, please. I have 2 minutes left. This is my daughter's dog. Anyone identify what kind of dog that is? That's a Shih Tzu. That is a dog that serves no evolutionary purpose of any kind. It's just humans that have done bad things to animals for 1,000 years. Now, you can tell I've got a little bias of my own there. We were just at the lake last weekend and this dog has to wear a life jacket because it's not able to swim apparently. So I give my daughter a lot of crap about that. But what I want to point out is that that dog adds more value to my daughter and her husband and our family. It's not about logic, it's about emotion. And my closing statement around AI is this. As you listen to the other presenters today, think about options, possibility thinking. How can you use AI? How can you leverage AI? How can you enjoy AI? How do you understand the pitfalls and the concerns around AI also? But I want to close with this. I want to thank you for the opportunity to share with you. And if I can provide any information as we move forward, please feel free to reach out. Thank you so much, and I'll turn it back.
Thank you, Mike. That was really great. So much great information out there. And I think we're going to have a lot of people probably creating whimsical poems later today. We will see. So next, please welcome Cameron Mott. who is our regional analysis and outreach manager with Deed's Labor Market Information Office. Cameron brings a deep expertise in labor market data and will show what the numbers tell us about AI's impact on jobs and skills in Minnesota. So Cameron, I will turn it over and have you take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much, Becky, for inviting me. And it's going to be a tough act to follow after Mike, but hopefully I can help fill in some of the data that goes along with the human side and the technology side coming together. So I just want to be clear on the front end. I am far from an expert on artificial intelligence. I am using it in my work, but certainly not here to train anyone on how to use AI. But I have become very invested in the topic, and I'm really curious how it's going to impact Minnesota's economy. So to that end, I want to give a quick overview of an article that my colleague Luke Greiner and I wrote for a recent issue of Minnesota Economic Trends, which is about our state's exposure to artificial intelligence. So whether you've used it or not, you've likely heard about AI. As Mike was saying, the idea has been around for a long time, but the practice is still relatively new. ChatGPT was released in November of 2022, but has already come a long ways. And AI tools like Claude, Julius, Perplexity, Gemini, and Copilot are increasingly being adopted in workplaces. So Luke and I wrote that article last August, which was only a year ago, but it already feels like a whole new world when looking at AI. Now, that being said, I'm still proud to say that the article holds up and has a lot of useful insights for Minnesota's economy. So clearly, AI is a rapidly improving technology that's going to impact businesses and workers. It's going to enhance some jobs, disrupt others, and create new ones as well. That creates a lot of uncertainty. Now, you may have seen recent articles, including several recent ones quoting the CEO of Anthropic, saying that AI could wipe out roughly 50% of all entry-level white-collar jobs. He says those cuts could come within 5 years, causing widespread unemployment and labor market unrest. He's urging consumers and lawmakers to prepare now to protect the nation. So while I think it's smart to be prepared, warnings like these might lose a little focus on the changes that are actually occurring and the steps that we can take to adapt. While AI is changing rapidly, much like past technologies such as calculators and computers and the internet, the actual impact on jobs might take longer to arrive and have different impacts than originally expected. So in this complex environment, a better understanding of AI's potential effects on Minnesota's economy is crucial for businesses and workers, as well as for workforce development, economic development, policymakers, educators, and students. We want to be clear that exposure to AI is not defined as positive or negative, nor does it imply replacement over augmentation. Each worker's interaction with AI is going to determine their outcome, whether it's positive or negative. For example, AI can help a labor market analyst such as myself and Luke by providing research assistance, similar to how the calculator and then the spreadsheet and then tax software programs have allowed bookkeepers and accountants to upskill. In fact, Luke and I leveraged AI while writing this article. So here's a picture of, if you can click the slide here, you can see a picture of Luke and I. All right, this is us before we started writing the article. If you click it again, you can see how we enhanced ourselves using AI through the article. What we found through our research was that more than 1.6 million jobs in Minnesota will be highly exposed to AI, which is about 56% of total employment in the state. Now, those are ones that have high exposure. Every job will essentially have some exposure at some point. We have a high concentration of jobs that are going to be impacted, yet it's not currently possible for AI to completely replace such tasks, like writing an article, let alone the entire suite of responsibilities in our position as labor market analysts. So and as one of the people in the chat was saying, even modest AI use requires extensive knowledge to coach and refine contributions and make sure that it's actually even accurate information. So you can click to the next slide there. So we are still at the front end of adoption of AI, but it seems likely that eventually every job will be impacted by AI in some way. However, unlike most past waves of technology and automation that have primarily affected blue-collar workers, White-collar workers are more susceptible to changes due to AI. These occupations tend to have higher educational requirements and higher wages. In our research, we found that 70% of employment in occupations with the highest exposure to AI have a median wage above $60,000 per year, and over 75% of occupations that typically require a bachelor's degree or higher are in the highest exposure group. Our article includes a visualization that ranks the occupation by their exposure to AI and then includes Minnesota wages and educational requirements. You can check that out online in our article. Again, to be clear, exposure does not imply a positive or negative outcome. While some skills and tasks will become automated or obsolete, many tasks and the jobs themselves will actually be enhanced by AI, and new jobs will be created. Jobs like labor market analysts will still exist, but will be enhanced by AI, and analysts will need to learn to use AI to be successful. Maybe just to make myself feel better after seeing that quote from the Anthropic CEO, I looked up and I found some research from the late 1990s, including from the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco, that suggested some of the same challenges to jobs due to the introduction and widespread adoption of the internet. So while the internet has certainly changed many aspects of work, it has also enhanced many jobs and created even more than it has displaced. For example, it'd be hard to envision working without the internet. This meeting would have had to happen in person, or 30 years ago, I guess it wouldn't have happened at all because we wouldn't have had this technological capability. We can click to the next slide. So as an example in our article, we picked out 2 occupations to show the different ranges of AI exposure. On the high end is genetic counselors, which is a high wage, high education job. They can use AI to help with data analysis. In fact, nearly every task that a genetic counselor does can be enhanced by AI. On the other end, exercise trainers are less likely to be directly exposed to AI. While they could certainly use AI to create practice plans or learn new techniques and ideas or work on coaching, the hands-on nature of the work currently requires physical interaction and real-time feedback and encouragement, so it's less likely to benefit from AI right now. And again, every worker's adoption of AI is going to be different. When looking at occupations, the key is understanding how AI can benefit the role. For the article, we interviewed AI expert Charles Fidel, and he talked about the difference between being a washing machine and knowing how to do the laundry. A washing machine can clean the clothes, but it doesn't know how to choose the correct cycle or sort the clothes or switch them over to the dryer. Now, at some point it might, but would still need some human oversight to make sure that it's functioning correctly. So one particularly useful thing that he pointed out is that AI will not replace most jobs anytime soon. But one thing is sure, workers with AI will beat those without AI. You can click to the next slide. So our article also looks at AI exposure by industry using data from occupational exposure to roll it upwards. Not surprisingly, the industries most likely to be exposed to AI include professional and technical services, management of companies, manufacturing, healthcare and social assistance, finance and insurance, and educational services. Now, we call out education specifically because it is extremely important. Not only is the industry exposed to AI, but educators are also on the front lines of teaching students how to use and benefit from AI. So educational services is kind of at the crossroads, both benefiting from and training workers to use AI. But as Mike might echo, some people in education are wary of AI and are against using it in school, or are mostly focused on plagiarism rather than learning how AI can be used to enhance education. Now, this is a huge and complicated topic, but I was fortunate enough to attend the MnGAIA conference last month, and as one leading educator recently said, AI is problematic primarily to our existing structures, not to learning itself. An AI unit in a classroom isn't going to cut it. One elective course in high school isn't going to cut it either. Fluency means students don't just learn about AI, they learn with it. They build, question, solve, and create. This isn't about checking a box. It is about preparing students to lead in a world that is already changing fast. Educational services is going to have a leadership role in making that transition. Driven by unique industrial mix, AI will also have different levels of impact in different parts of the state. Our article also includes a visualization that shows exposure to AI at the county level based on industry and occupational concentrations. So in general, metro areas tend to have higher exposure due to the high concentration of technical jobs, but each local economy is unique. Hennepin County has the highest exposure, and it's the largest county in the state, while Todd County has the lowest exposure. But it's important to note that several smaller counties that have high concentrations of education and healthcare employment also rank highly in greater Minnesota. Next slide. So in summary, AI is transforming tasks for jobs across industries and geographies, raising both optimism and concern. While AI has the potential to increase efficiency, drive innovation, reduce tedious work, and create new job opportunities, there's also significant worry about widespread job displacement and inequitable economic effects. That's why it's important for us to understand the exposure of Minnesota occupations and industries to AI, to plan for strategic workforce development, economic planning, and policy interventions, and prepare for future impacts of AI on Minnesota jobs and our workforce. Much like the internet or other new technologies before it, AI is going to greatly change the skills and functions of jobs over time, but it doesn't mean that those jobs are all going away. Major employing industries in Minnesota, such as management of companies, manufacturing, finance and insurance, and healthcare and social assistance, are all poised to benefit from AI. Yet these same sectors are also at higher risk of disruption, especially in white-collar jobs that have traditionally been considered stable. The challenge lies in preparing workers through education, retraining, and support systems to steer them through this transition smoothly, ensuring that AI's benefits are broadly shared while mitigating the risks of economic disruption. The key to successfully navigating this shift will be ensuring that the Minnesota workforce is equipped with the skills needed to adapt to a labor market transformed by AI, and that Minnesota educators, government, business, and community leaders are prepared to position the state's economy to optimize the benefits of AI. All right, you can click to my last slide here. So this is, Jessica was talking about the regional workforce strategy consultants. We also have a team of regional labor market analysts stationed around the state. Highly encourage you to reach out to anyone in this group. They are super friendly, super responsive, and super helpful. I appreciate the opportunity to present. Encourage anyone to reach out to our team with additional questions. We're happy to help, and no matter where you're located in the state, we've got you covered. I'll hand it back to Becky, and she's going to for some insights into the business side of AI implementation.
Wow, that was great, Cameron. A lot of great data out there on AI, and just there's just so much that can be coming to our future. So thank you for that. Also, let's see. So we're going to switch gears here a little bit. Now that we've got everything covered for the fundamentals then and the data, we're going to meet two Minnesota employers and set the stage for the Unplugged deep dive that I was talking about earlier. So in the next few minutes, you'll hear brief introductions from each company, who they are and what they make or do, and any hiring challenges they may have faced. And then during that Unplugged at noon, then we'll dig into the details of how they're specifically using or testing AI in their operations. So first, Steve Gasser is founder and president of Vivid Image, a digital marketing agency based in Minnesota. And Steve guides businesses on strategy, branding, and emerging tech, including AI tools for marketing. And then Elaine Powell, who is the new business development manager at Harmony Enterprises, a fourth-generation manufacturer in Harmony. Elaine is leading Harmony's early AI exploration in purchasing and production workflows. So each of you want to take about 5 minutes for their intro, and then we'll dive into the Unplugged. So Steve, let's go ahead and start with you.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. My name is Steve Gasser. I run Vivid Image. We've been around for 30 years. So we've seen a lot of change. We started before even Google was around. And AI is just one of the latest changes that we're working on adapting to. Within Vivid Image, Boy, I've been doing presentations around AI to small businesses, especially in rural areas, and how to really prepare for AI and how to best use it. I think, a lot of what I have to say is going to come in our Q&A section based on some of the questions that you have. So I'm not going to spend much more time talking about Vivid Image other than my job is really not only prepare my company for AI, but to prepare my clients, my customers on how can they use AI to make sure that they are the obvious choice when people are searching for them.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for that. How about we hear from Lane now with Harmony?
Absolutely. Becky, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
My camera doesn't show that I'm working, so I just want to make sure I'm good. Well, thank you for this opportunity. Both Harmony Enterprises and myself very much appreciate being asked to be a part of this exciting discussion today. As Becky mentioned, I'm the new business development manager here at Harmony. I'm kind of a utility player with my main role being marketing, but I also work in data privacy, employee attraction and retention, training, and I act as a customer service liaison with internal departments here. We are a family-owned manufacturer, actually in our 5th generation, of waste handling and recycling products, founded in 1962 as a way to provide employment to local residents outside of the agricultural sector that is so predominant here. We manufacture over 40 models of recycling balers, indoor and outdoor trash compactors, and full product destruction machines. We employ 75 people here in Harmony, which is a rural community based in the beautiful bluff country here of southeast Minnesota, about 3 miles north of the Iowa border, about an hour west of La Crosse. And we do have a subsidiary office in Toulouse, France, which is mainly dedicated to service of equipment in both that country and Western Europe. We're a B2B business. We provide solutions in pretty much any vertical that generates waste. Either they need help reducing their waste footprint, hauling costs, hazards reduced to things like space consumption, fire, odor, vermin, pilferage, or they prefer to recycle valuable commodities like cardboard, paper, plastic, aluminum, and other non-ferrous metals that are naturally part of an operational byproduct, and rather do that than pay for a hauler to take them away. We sell over to 90 countries worldwide and have a virtually unlimited customer profile, which is fun as a marketer. Our customers are large and small and range from mom and pop retail stores to regional grocers, to things like medical facilities, national restaurant chains, and even food and beverage manufacturers all over the country. Our smart equipment runs on Allen Bradley PLCs, and many of our models are equipped with IoT monitoring devices for machine diagnostics and monitoring. To set the stage for the AI discussion that we're going to have, this fun Q&A coming up, Harmony sees potential for the use of AI in both our own manufacturing processes, but also, of course, with our product line. We know that if we don't start using it, integrating it, our competitors surely will. So we want to be on the front edge of that. And then personally, I'm a Gen Xer, and I'm intrigued by AI, but my initial reaction was biased from my experience receiving ChatGPT generated emails starting around like 21, 22, from people who had difficulty speaking to the content of the body of their own email in a critical way after they sent it to me. I was troubled by that the formulation of the content wasn't always comprehended by the user, which made me apprehensive of the whole overall AI thing. So that's just kind of a business and personal background.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, Wayne. I don't know the camera. I couldn't see your picture, so I'm not sure if your camera's functioning, but
It seems to be going in and out, so I'm just going to stick with the audio as long as we can.
all right. Sounds good. All right. So I think we are actually ahead of schedule, which is fantastic because I saw all of the questions in the chat. So I think what we'll do is just keep plugging along into our Workforce Wednesdays session, the Unplugged session, where we have some questions and we can really dig into the AI as it relates to the employers. So I think that's what we've got for now. So thank you for the presentations. Keep questions coming. We can turn cameras on and keep plugging away, and I'll hand it over to Shayla, who's gonna ask the questions in the next section. So thank you.
Before you go to Shayla, could I ask a quick question?
Sure, Mike.
Steve, would you talk just briefly also about the work you do in the community and the region, in addition to just your clients? I think it's important that people understand some of the community work you do to help people better understand, utilize AI also. I just think that's a piece that adds some context as they start asking questions.
Sure. I'm just excited to get into the questions rather than talk about my company a bit. So we focus on family-owned businesses, primarily in rural regions. Things I love about the family-owned, kind of like Lane, is so not only family-owned, but they deeply care about their employees. They treat their employees like family. They're passionate about their products, and they're engaged in their communities. Those are the businesses I love working with. And those are the businesses I want to see succeed. And one of the ways I look at using AI is how do we help them get a leg up on large organizations? And I think AI is one of these tools you can use to really level the playing field. So when we get into the Q&A, we'll talk more about how AI can really be used to leverage the playing field, to get a leg up on your competition and really reveal what makes you remarkable.
Thanks for that addition there, Steve. That is helpful. And Shayla, we got all the
Awesome.
everything ready to go, I think, for the
Yes.
next one. Yeah.
You do. I was getting that last question ready. I just seen pop up. So
Yeah.
we'll be moving on to the unplugged next, but right now we want to let you all know to join us for next month, which will be my month, and we'll be having labor market information and some employers on that one. So registration is open for August 6th, Workforce Wednesday. We'll be focused on unlocking workforce insights through navigating labor market information for employers. So we'll be exploring how, you can kind of drive your workforce development and business success through connecting with labor market and, how we utilize data to access funding opportunities and collaborative resources, making workforce development more scalable, cost effective. And so it's going to be a fantastic session. You'll be able to see all the DEED tools and resources that LMI works so hard to develop for employers, and then how our employers actually utilize that. And so it's going to be a fantastic session. Register for that. And then you can also, on our Workforce Wednesday page, check out our archive for our historical sessions, all of the resources, and then that's where this event will be recorded and our resources will go after this event is finalized. So give it a couple of days and it'll be up there as well. Next slide. So we're going to put up the survey one more time. It was popped up in the beginning. We're going to put it up there again. So, the survey is what informs future Workforce Wednesday events. So you talk, we listen, right? Everyone wanted to know about technology and AI. That's why we're having this event. And so the more that you let us know what you want to know about, we're able to implement them into the session. So please be sure to fill out that survey. I want to thank Becky for a fantastic event and our panelists so far. And we're going to hop on into the unplugged and keep it moving. We are going to switch some settings, and so everyone can be able to, turn on their cameras and their microphones if they want to, raise your hands, ask some questions. But we have collected a bunch of questions from the chat, and so we're going to go ahead and keep it moving. So with that, we can go ahead and take the slides off and ask some questions. So I think where I want to start, if I look at this, there were some good ones, but I think where I want to probably start is acknowledging that AI does hallucinate. We know this. And so knowing that there's hallucinations, how can we trust it? Or how do we expect to learn from AI if AI can't be trusted? Right? So I don't know who would like to take that one. That one is a general audience question, but we all kind of acknowledge AI does make mistakes. And so if it's going to be making frequent mistakes, how do we expect a newer AI user to learn? Was the main question, the main word that they had used in there, learn from AI.
I can start with that one.
Mhm.
I think a lot of times when we're using AI, we're not very specific in how we prompt it and what we tell it to do. So we put in information into AI and we expect it to come out with the perfect answers. And AI really wants to please you. So it's trying to present something to you. Part of what we can do is look at how can we help AI get to the right answer. One of the best ways to do that is, if I said, AI, I want you to generate a recipe for me for something to cook. Well, it generates a recipe and then I'm like, oh, I don't have any of that food in my fridge. Okay, well, then I tell it what I have in the fridge. Well, no, that's a boring recipe. So if you say, tell AI what type of expert you are. You are Gordon Ramsay. I have eggs, spaghetti noodles, and some hamburger in the fridge. I want you to put together a recipe that's going to make me look like a 5-star chef. Ask me any questions you have. It's building that right framework so that you tell AI exactly what you're looking for. It gets much better at not hallucinating as much as it could if you're just more general.
So
Because
that prompt development up front is really important.
yes,
To that point, you need to know what you're looking for in your result. So you have to have some type of knowledge, skills, and abilities to be able to know to look for the errors.
you do. There always should be human intervention, but you can spend more time educating AI so it can get to the answer quicker.
I would just add, if you remember that slide I said is the most important, it's the tech and touch. And it takes human validation. And I think the other piece to keep in mind, I always smile about this because of my background, is that AI is very human-like, even though we don't want to accept that, because we also can't believe everything humans tell us, and humans also make mistakes, but we can learn from humans. And I think as long as you take time to validate the information, look at multiple sources, do your due diligence, you can reduce that. If you just, I'll give you a quick story. We had a faculty member talking about a student who was 18 years old, turned in a resume as an assignment. And in that assignment, in his resume, he had been a manager at a major manufacturing company in our region for 3 full years, which means he started when he was about 12. He didn't take time to even proofread that. He just took what he got, cut and pasted, and turned it in. So that human validation and that interaction is ultimately vital for any use of any kind of, I even proofread the poems before I send them to my wife, so you know that.
There was just the funniest thing. I couldn't help it. I tried everything I could to not just audibly laugh while you were talking, Mike, but a Miles just said in the chat, can you ask AI if it's hallucinating? So, that gave me the gigs. But somebody said one time, if you're not really good at prompt development, ask AI some to help you develop your prompt. Even like if it's not giving you what you want, maybe ask it, what do you need? What do you want me to ask you for you to give me what I want? So sometimes it could even be ask it what you're missing so that you can fill in the blank.
Yeah, that's a brilliant strategy, Shayla.
That was really helpful. And I think when we were looking here, somebody had wrote, I'm really concerned about, we were talking about the 50% of entry-level positions that could be impacted by AI. And they were saying they're really concerned about those 50% of entry-level white-collar jobs. They were like, well, how do they expect people to pay the bills and eat while they're waiting for this new economy? Well, the new economy seems to be here. I think a lot of it comes to acquiring those skills. So maybe what are some suggestions that we can give individuals or to help maybe set people up to success to say, okay, you maybe not need, you don't need it all in the beginning, but what are some of these beginning things to get people to say, here's where you can start? Either from a business perspective or an individual perspective. You don't need to know everything. You don't need to be you don't need to have all of the right answers. You just need to be able to start in one place, either from a business or a personal perspective with utilizing the tools. Because if these are the jobs of the future, we can't be waiting for everything to be fully developed, for example. Especially like we were saying, as quick as it's generatively being developed.
Yeah, I think skills and tasks are going to change much more rapidly than jobs change. And so I think that's an important thing for job seekers or students or even hiring HR people to understand. So, you know, the things that a worker needs to be able to do is going to change, but a good example of that is like cashiers. You know, we've been talking about them for a long time, how they're going to be replaced. Well, you know, 60 years ago, they might have been standing behind a counter and may have been dispensing soda from a fountain and, or passing along pharmaceuticals, or, you know, would need to have knowledge of hardware and like, hardware like screws and nails and hammers and things like that. And now, you know, that evolved over time. And then we had, you know, UPCs where you could just scan on a register, but you still needed to have skills as a cashier. Now, you know, there's a lot of self-checkouts that exist, and it's one cashier that's watching 4 self-checkout areas. So that job still exists, but the skills that are necessary to be successful in that job have changed greatly over that time frame. And AI is going to be a super powerful tool, but I imagine it's going to work in many of those same ways. So again, like what Charles is talking about is not that jobs are going to be replaced immediately, but people who understand how to use AI are likely going to have a leg up over people who refuse to use AI or aren't sure how to use it. And it can replace a lot of the tedious tasks, but it, you know, to Mike's point, or even to Steve's point too, you know, like ChatGPT is very sycophantic, right? It'll just tell you what you want to hear. You still need to have the knowledge and the experience that comes with working in that job and understanding what your individual business's needs are to utilize the AI in the most effective way. I saw Steve come on muted too, so he wants to add.
Yeah, I love what you said there too. And I look at AI as, if you think about modern productivity, I think it's about getting a return on investment of your time, your energy, and your focus. So how can we use AI to automate repetitive tasks? We all have repetitive tasks that we do every day. Are there ways you can automate that with AI? You know, how can you save even 15 minutes a day? I think protecting deep work, especially for knowledge workers, finding that time to just focus. How can we use AI to start protecting our deep work, to eliminate decision fatigue, and really to turn knowledge into action faster? AI is really good at taking a lot of knowledge and assimilating it down into what you actually need, as long as you direct it in the right way.
Jayla, for us in the rural, you know, manufacturing world, it's a little bit less about new employees coming in with that knowledge base. It's about training the existing workforce we have and upskilling them. And I can think of 3 examples. You know, it's behooved on us as the employer to make sure that our systems and processes are set up to use AI. You know, we have a lot of antiquated stuff here in this factory, right? And we're looking at utilizing AI to help with our BOMs and our routed times. But if we're going to do that, we have to invest in the software that integrates all of our systems so that people can be trained on how to use it. And so, but that's a big investment as us as a business. Another way is, you know, our purchasing manager is using AI and professional chat GPT just for basic data entry of things that would have 30 touches before, but now has 1 touch. But we have seen some hallucinations with that. So to help him and train him, we're partnering with some of our partners up in the cities in the technological world, like New Boundary Technologies, to help us kind of be over his shoulder and teach him how to do those inputs the correct way. And the last thing is, you know, just basic coursework. We leveraged the Incumbent Worker Training Program from WDI, and I myself was able to take AI and marketing courses, basic level stuff from the Darden School at Virginia, but then really dive in deeper and learn how I can use it to be a better content marketer and where to kind of avoid some pitfalls too. So from the employer side, we need to give the employees what they need to be upskilled.
So it's not about them coming in with the skills. It's about being able to, you know, teach them the skills that they need once they get there. So having it, you know, scalable for the employers, their needs, their roles, and being able to have, okay, here's the AI for the entry level positions and, mid-level positions, C-suite positions, because it's being able to be utilized throughout the organization.
Right, and our talent pool is super limited down here, right? We only get so many, and then the different roles they have different expectations. So it's exactly right.
Yep. So let's take this to now. Okay, let's say we had a question about filling gaps for maybe historically underfilled sectors. So construction was one. So they put there was a lot of concern about AI replacing jobs, but about 413,000 construction positions go unfilled nationally. I think that was the 2024 number that they had put. So some experts argue that AI could be used to like augment certain roles, which we were talking about earlier, one person with, AI augmented support. So rather than cutting individual workforce, you're augmenting it for, positions. Does the Minnesota labor back that employers are moving that route, AI augmented supports versus expanding additional positions, cutting additional positions? Or is reskilling and upskilling alongside upskilling alongside AI tend to be the new path for employers? Or are they still going the old school route right now of we need to just expand our workforce? It's people first, technology second, or are we seeing more of that technology first mindset, especially in those historically people gap, not skills gap positions where they cannot find the people to fill those roles?
That was an incredibly complicated.
Yeah, it's complicated. So
But
the way
I
they're
will
asking
say-
it is that there's a lot of people that have not been able to fill those roles. And so
Yeah.
augmenting those roles, are we seeing that pattern in Minnesota?
Yeah, so I will say from our research on AI exposure, most construction subsectors are not highly exposed to artificial intelligence, at least at this point. Most of the occupations that would be needed in those roles, still require a human, and certainly, some parts of what they are doing could be enhanced through AI, but at this point, not at all replaced. And so, like if you look, crop production, foundation structure and building and exterior contractors, building finishing contractors, other specialty trade contractors, highway, street, and bridge construction, they're all toward the bottom of the list of industries that are seeing exposure to AI at this point. So he had shared the national numbers. Minnesota is no different. We have a large number, thousands of job vacancies in the construction industry that haven't been filled. So absolutely, are there ways that construction companies can benefit from AI? Yeah, perhaps there's opportunities in increasing recruiting, or, casting a wider net, or tapping into talent pools that haven't been tapped into yet, or collaborating more closely with workforce development. So if there are people who have been impacted in other ways, that they can get into the construction pipeline as quickly and efficiently as possible. And again, I'm not an expert on AI. I'm not an expert on construction, but I imagine there are programs in AI that benefit construction that people could be trained on across the state that would benefit those employers. So, yeah, our current research shows that that's not an industry that's highly exposed to AI at the current moment, but that might change over time as well.
We had Marie, you had your hand raised. Do you have a question, or if so, you can come off mute and ask that, and then I can continue asking questions.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Shayla. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, you know what? I actually just also typed it into the Q&A, but I will just I guess so yeah, this is a really interesting conversation, and I'm wondering if any of the panelists here would have a thought on this this question about how all of this, so what are we kind of driving at, right, in the conversation around AI? Because it's kind of hearing kind of two different, I think, threads are coming up here. One being that there's like sort of like this individual people get comfortable with and start using AI, just using AI, and knowing more about AI. And then the second one seems to be like really completely different, which is like businesses incorporate AI into their operations. So somehow there's something that people at work need to know about what that is, right? Like, is that then something that is actually a competence of the workforce to then somehow engage, right, with that AI in the course of business operations or any other function in a business? Like, what does that really kind of mean? And, you know, when I go to that part of it, I mean, you could maybe see somebody who, let's just say you're in HR, right? And you decide you want to use AI in your HR practice. So, what are the pros and cons of using AI to craft a job description, right? Is that a good idea? And then, secondly, how is AI actually used in HR practice? What should we know about that? What's changing? What are the pros and cons? And what are people who are actually interacting with that technology needing to know as professionals who are exposed to AI in a business process change, right? So, I think like that, I'm just trying to wrap my head around, and what should we know, right? As educators, as workforce development specialists, as people who are in the world trying to, you know, advise and help people who are looking to re-career, or even these young folks getting into college who are now making statements like, well, AI is probably just going to take a lot of this over. So how do I know what my major should be? Because this is all going to change, right? There's a lot of that kind of sentiment too, of like, it's so in flux, like it's hard to get there with really understanding what we're actually, you know, like, does that make sense? Like, I don't know, like what that, but it just seems that conceptually there's a lot changing, and it's just it's a pretty fluid state. Yeah.
So there was a lot of questions in there. So I don't know if y'all want to focus on maybe one of pick one out of many, or you each want to maybe pick one out of many, because I'm sure each one of y'all maybe heard a question out of those that y'all want to focus on, and then we can pick up from there. Yeah.
I'll
So let me
just jump
start.
in. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Let me start. And I think Mike and Cameron will have some things to add to it. But from an HR perspective, one of the ways you can use AI from an HR perspective is uploading the candidate's resume and have it compare to the job description you have. Because now we can identify where are some gaps and what are some questions we should ask to make sure that they have the right skills. HR people also need to know that cover letters and resumes could also be getting written around that job description. So if Lane posts a job description, I could upload his job description and my resume and have it rewrite my resume to fit Lane's job description. So as an HR professional, you need to know that too.
Steve, I'm going to take that one step further.
Yeah.
If I'm applying for a job at your location, here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to take that job announcement. I'm going to take everything I can find about your company. I'm going to go to your website, your URL. I'm going to find at least 5 to 7 news articles or references. I'm going to take all of that information and I'm going to put it into the project I'm working on. I'm going to ask it to identify the mission, the vision, the values, and the guiding principles of this organization. And then I'm going to look at my skill set. I've already created my resume. I already have my cover letter, but I'm going to help customize to make it more, to match even better than what I may have done. So I talk about this in trainings, I talk about this in meetings, and people run that whole continuum of that's absolutely cheating to that's absolutely brilliant. And if you look through the chat today, if you've had a chance, there's all that whole range, that whole continuum of people that are, okay, how do I use this differently, to people who are really skeptical. And I think that's the piece that opportunities like today offer all of you, to give you a chance to get exposed to more lenses and ideas, and to get you to ask different questions. And I think that's what's so important about today's event, is wherever you're at in that continuum, it gives you some better questions, some better ways to ask and learn more. And the last piece I want to add is, you talk about it being kind of, transitional. The key to me for the future, if you look at some of the chat questions, what skill set do we need our employees to be successful? It's that skill set of adaptability, because the actual skill sets we need in 2025 going to be markedly different in 2027, 2030. We've never had a work environment that was this transitional before, and it's going to be difficult for a lot of people who are really who struggle with that rate, intensity, and volume of change. So going back to the sociological background pieces, we're talking about the technology, but we can't minimize or ignore the human side of this. So thank you.
Yeah, and so let's add a layer to this, right? Because this was asked in the chat, right? So we're thinking about maybe HR utilizing this to maybe write job descriptions. Maybe we want to review a job description to see if it still aligns with what they're doing and those kind of things. But maybe what policies can be put in place to maybe make sure that we're doing it appropriately or safely, and we're not just taking, because we talked about it earlier, maybe uncanny valley or hallucinations, these kind of things. It seems right, but maybe just not quite close, but not that. So how could we protect our workplaces, make sure we're doing things appropriately? Maybe what are some of the things that could be suggested, or do y'all have any recommendations about maybe what businesses should do or best practices to maybe allow businesses to maybe move forward with some of these small implementations, but yet protecting the business as a whole?
Well, I like what Lane said about, as employers, we need to take the lead and start educating our employees. We could create all the policies we want. I like to start with guidelines. Guidelines don't feel as strong, and things just change. So, some of the guidelines that we talk about, or that I talk about with my employees, is we need to recognize and mitigate biases. AI is going to have biases when it writes, and how do we recognize and mitigate that? How do we protect privacy and ensure client confidentiality? That's something, anytime you're using AI, I want my team thinking about that. Balancing transparency. Use it in ideation, but always have human eyes. So the idea is creating guidelines rather than policies, because it's going to change a lot. And I find guidelines are accepted a little bit easier too.
That's a better word. People like that word better. So, okay, this might be it. Everyone can just say, I don't have the answer, but I'm going to ask it just because it was in the chat. But does anyone have the lowdown on potential or forethought, or whatever the right word might be on this, but like regulatory changes around usage at the state or federal level for AI, or changes to utilization at the state and federal level? Shaking heads, just asked it because it was in the chat. That one wasn't easy. I'll keep it going. Okay. So
just a quick comment. It is going to be framed by the legal system, and there are multiple lawsuits, state level and federal level and globally. And the outcomes of those lawsuits will really be what people are going to use for the framework for what those parameters will be. I think it's going to be a kind of a wait and see process of how those lawsuits come out. And it's going to be several years, I think, before there's any definitive even guidelines.
Mm-hmm. And so someone had asked earlier about entry level work and about AI doubling it. So we were talking about, I lost my spot and my question. Oh, so if someone is doing a job search right now and a lot of the processes are automated and it's for entry level positions, how would somebody really secure that entry level work? What certificates would you all recommend maybe they go out for? Or is there something that maybe you all look for and say, oh, that would probably really, really fit well if this entry level job has a lot of automation? Because I know a few years back, the whole, Google certificates were like the hot ticket item, right? The Coursera Google certificates, right? So is there anything right now that seems to be like that hot ticket certificate, like foundations of AI or anything like that, that would help somebody get a leg up for an entry level position? Or is it kind of like a YouTube University type thing? You go on, you kind of play, learn, you just kind of get in and say, I've fiddled with it. You know, what all do you all say about those entry level positions that seem to be automation heavy?
This is an area that we're interested in and hoping to do some additional research moving forward. In the limited research that I've seen so far, very few job postings actually require AI skills. There was a national study that showed like less than 0.5% were listing AI skills like 10 years ago. Now it's like 1.7%. So that's significant growth, significant change, but it's still less than 2% of job postings are requiring AI. So at this point, it's probably more of a, you know, like there's no degree or credential or, you know, listed certificate that you can place, at least that I'm aware of. But having that skill set, again, is going to separate you from people who don't have that. So when you're writing your cover letter, or even if you're putting together your resume, if you add that you have skills in whatever AI software you use, whether it's Claude or Perplexity or ChatGPT, saying that in your resume is going to help set you apart for that job, even if it's not a specific requirement in the job posting itself.
From an
Go ahead.
from an education standpoint too, just understand the stress that this change is having on higher education, even K-12, in that historically we've focused on degrees, certificates, awards, etc. From the work I'm doing with different workforce groups, employers are looking for skill sets now, and they'll sometimes give more weight to a set of skills than an actual award, and that's completely challenging for our historical model. So just wanted to add that think in terms of, it may not be a degree, a certificate, an award, but how do you articulate the skill sets that you can bring to add value to whatever job, whatever employment that you're looking to be part of. If I can come in and say, I can add these skill sets to you and I can add value in these ways, that's pretty appealing for employers in today's environment.
How do you add value? Yes, absolutely. I have those questions for Lane, but if anyone else has something to add, absolutely. But when you began implementing AI at Harmony, what challenges did you face blending your AI tools within your current existing systems? So like, you know, adding AI to your, you know, ERP or anything like that. So like what solutions did you come up with, you know, to help with your workflows or to prevent disruptions, those kind of things?
Yeah, we had to start from scratch, and I should note we are still in our infancy of using it. You know, we started with just making an AI task force here. Actually, we have 10% of our employees on the task force, people from all different ages that are interested in doing it. And then we looked at where can it be used and in what areas, as far as crawling before we run. And we identified purchasing as that place. We also identified building out the bombs in engineering as that as well. And then our manuals, entry of the manuals for troubleshooting with our tech support. But all those things made us go back and look at what does our infrastructure look like. There's no way we can do that in purchasing without professional ChatGPT, right? So we had to buy seats for everybody here, learn how to use it, how to assign those seats to people that have experience and train the people that didn't. For the stuff on the floor, for the routed hours and the bombs, we actually had to invest in a mobile managing system and redo everything on our fourth barcodes. And that's a big deal if you're in the manufacturing world. But we're getting to that, and it just takes a lot of time and infrastructure. So it's about, right now, it's about a 9-month process just to build it out. We haven't started using that part yet.
Awesome. Does anyone else have anything to add about blending AI to their current ecosystems or systems that they're utilizing? Then if not, I have one more question for you, Lane. How did you pinpoint like your first opportunity or what was going to be that first step, you know, to really kind of support the factory floor and kind of what has made it successful for your
Yeah,
first
Yeah, obviously, as a business, we look at efficiencies, right? And we like to know where they are and where they aren't. And we realized right away that we had some issues with consistency in our bombs and routers. And it's all been human based up to this point, as far as we go back and look at them and fix them. And it takes so much time. And even there's errors. But we make over 40 models, right? And we've done that for 50, 60 years. So if you go back through all those revs, you imagine the amount of data that's there. We realized right away that we cause a lot of our own problems just with human error. And so we're trying to go back and say, okay, we can automate this and it'll show us right now where everything's at, what's happened, where there might be a part missing on the floor, just the pain point of a basic manufacturing, lean manufacturing facility, trying to become more efficient and stay ahead of the curve financially.
So this question just came in the chat and I want to ask this to everybody because this is good, right? We have employers that some are implementing AI. They want different tech skills. They want different levels of digital literacy within individuals, right? But there is a lot of hesitancy with other businesses and things on AI technology, right? There's this fear of it's coming for us all and, you know, AI is taking over the world and, you know, this. So with this skepticism and this fear, and then so it's kind of like this bipolar emotionality when it comes to AI. Would some applicants be at risk for it being seen as sketchy if they emphasize their AI skills, if it's potentially an employer that, you know, is not utilizing the technology yet, or if it might be an employer that's skeptical of AI? So we have some employers that are going for AI, but other employers that are seeing it as,
how are you, Teresa?
sketchy.
Good.
Let me,
Okay, but I finally got to see you.
someone is not on mute and is on a phone call.
I muted her.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, go ahead. So recommendations for anyone applying for work.
I would think, you know, like what Mike was talking about is if you can use it to prove how you've created value for your organization by using AI, I think that takes away a lot of, or it may soften some of the skepticism that an employer would have in hiring somebody. So if you can put on your resume, not just I'm familiar with ChatGPT, but you can say, you know, I've got artificial intelligence proficiency. In my previous job, I used it to save X amount of dollars by improving X processes. That's a very clear way. And obviously you'd have to have done that and then be able to explain it in the interview in a way that, you know, works for the employer. It seems like, you know, again, I think that that's something that just can help differentiate you versus a person that's coming in without that capability. It's another tool in the toolbox. It is a skill that can be useful to benefit both the employee and the organization. Now, that being said, if you come into an organization that's skeptical about AI, those are questions you could also ask in the interview, you know, like what's the company's policy? What are the guidelines? How can we use AI? You know, like what's safe to put out into ChatGPT and what would we need to keep internal? So I think that job seekers, if they have that skill set, can definitely utilize it to try and differentiate themselves and make them more attractive to employers, even employers who haven't used AI yet, if they can see how it would benefit them.
Depending on the level of expertise, we might leverage them to be utilized in different areas of the company other than just the job description, right? How can we plug those skills in to help us learn how to use them in other areas?
Love it. Any other last words? That's going to be our final question. Okay, so I want to thank everybody. I think our fantastic panelists and our amazing audience for sticking around. And don't forget to complete the survey and join us for next month's Workforce Wednesday. Register for that. And have a great week. Reach out to your regional workforce strategy consultants if you want to talk workforce and if we can ever help you with anything. And with that, We'll see you all next month. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Great job, you guys.